Have you ever wondered why you float in the ocean, but it's a whole heck of a lot harder in a pool or a local pond? Or maybe you already know, but you're trying to explain it to your kids and you're really having trouble visualizing it or helping them to visualize it. I can help. I'm Brandy. I am the mom behind Aunt Bindy's bookshelf, and I am here to help you as you help your kids learn and grow. I'm a mom of two with years of experience in the classroom and as a part-time homeschool mom. Today I'm going to help by talking about why saltwater changes how we float. Let's talk for a second about sink and float experiments. It seems like the most ridiculous thing ever. We're literally just throwing stuff in water, right? But I cannot think of a better experiment to start introducing the scientific method. We ask a question: will this sink or will it float? We form a hypothesis. I think it'll float. We perform our experiment. Throw that bad boy right on in there and evaluate. Did it sink or did it float? Look at all those steps that we're covering. Today, we're going to introduce an additional variable into the experiment by adding salt to our water and seeing how that changes things up. After we do the experiment, I will do a talk about what is happening science-wise, the science behind why things sink or float. So you can either just do the experiment and have fun with your kids that way, or you can hang out and watch the science behind it. I'm going to drop chapters in the description so you can find where you need to be depending on what your kids want to do. Let's talk about what you're going to need to do this experiment. You're going to need 2 clear containers with about the same amount of water in each. It's not rocket science, it doesn't have to be exact. Salt, just plain table salt, works great. You'll need 2 eggs, 2 grapes, whatever else you kind of want to toss in there, and you'll need the book Swashby and the Sea. This is a reminder that all the science experiments on my channel are inspired by a picture book, the picture book of the month. This month's picture book is Swashby and the Sea. Swashby loves the sea, so of course we're going to do an ocean-inspired experiment. You don't have to read the book to do the experiment, but man, it's so much more fun if you do. And I also do a craft inspired by the book every month. Check that one out. Go ahead and make sure to subscribe so you get notified when I drop that, or you can check the description. The link might already be there. If you are homeschooling or supplementing and looking to do a really robust ocean unit, I have both math activity packs for preschool through 2nd graders and language arts activity packs for preschoolers through 2nd graders, all inspired by Swashby and the Sea, all related to the ocean. I will put the links for those in my description. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's do our experiment. We have our 2 glasses of roughly the same amount of water. One of our glasses is going to be our control glass. That's going to be just plain water. We're not going to do anything to that. Our second glass is going to be our variable glass. It's going to be our saltwater glass. Let's go ahead and add our saltwater to that. We are going to pour in salt until we can't dissolve it anymore. We're going to pour and stir until literally there's a little bit of salt at the bottom of our glass. Okay, I think that's about as dissolved as we're gonna get. Go ahead and drop the grape in. I'm gonna drop the grape into our fresh water. See how it sinks to the bottom? Now we are gonna drop it into our salt water. Oh, it floated right back up. Now do the same thing with your egg. Look at that! You can keep going with whatever else kids want to toss in. Some of it will sink in both, some of it will float in both, and some of it will be like the eggs and the grape. Here's the science behind what's happening here. Whenever we drop something in the water, it's like a war of forces. We have the force of gravity pulling the object down and the force of buoyancy pushing the object upward. As these forces fight, The water determines whether an object will sink or float. The amount of gravity is determined by how much an object weighs. The upward force is determined by the weight of the water that the object shoves out of the way. Let's take our grape, for example. When we dropped it in the plain water, the force pushing the grape up was weaker than the force pulling it down. That's because the grape weighed more than the water it had to shove aside to fall into the glass. But what if we took something else that takes up about the same amount of space but weighs less, like this bottle cap? It floats because it weighs less than the water it's displacing or moving aside. What changed when we added the salt? Well, the salt bulked up the water and made it weigh more. The salt gets into all the little nooks and crannies and really bumps up how much the water weighs without making it take up more space. When we drop the grape in, we're still moving the same amount of water, but now that water weighs more than the grape that's trying to move it. So in that battle between the force pulling downward and the force pushing upward, buoyancy brought in a ringer and pulled out the victory. Now we can drop heavier objects in and they'll float. But the same rules apply as before. If we drop in something that's heavier than the water, it moves aside. Gravity wins the battle. Did that help explain what's going on? Whether you just had fun playing in the plain and saltwater with your kids, or whether you guys took the whole journey and learned the science behind it, I hope you had a blast. Remember to go ahead and subscribe because I release a new video inspired by a picture book every month. And while you're waiting for next month's video, check out some of the other experiments and videos I've already done. You can find them here.